At the facility of the Joint Stock Company, the 53rd Arsenal, in the village of Yuganets, or Nizhny Novgorod region, the reactivation of the Russian super heavy high explosive aerial bomb, FAB-3000 model 1954, is being carried out. Most of these bombs are Soviet freefall bombs sitting in storage warehouses. At the plant, they are being refurbished and prepared for use. The 3-ton bomb was developed for Tu-16 and Tu-22 bombers. The plant management, in their statement, which sounded more like propaganda, claimed that they had restored mass production of FAB-3000 aerial bombs, multiplied the production of FAB-500 aerial bombs, and also doubled the production of FAB-1500 M54 bombs. Such results were achieved thanks to the reactivation and modernization of production facilities, the adoption of additional regulations, and the work of more than 1,100 people. It is reported that the FAB-3000 M54 is designed to destroy industrial, urban, port facilities, and other typical targets when dropped from altitudes of up to 16,000 meters at flight speeds of up to 1,200 kilometers per hour. The bomb contains 1,400 kilograms of TNT, weighs 3,067 kilograms without the Unified Planning and Correction Module, and has 3 fuses. The result of its explosion is a crater about 15 meters deep and severe concussions at a distance of several hundred meters. Such free-falling bombs were dropped on Azovstal. The radius of complete destruction from the bomb is about 46 meters, and the fragmentation field from the casing and target destruction extends up to 260 meters. Is it possible to convert it into a glide bomb? High precision and glide bombs began to have a direct impact on the course of combat operations only when the focus shifted from quality to quantity. This transition only happened when free-fall bombs mass-produced in Soviet times were equipped with long-developed modernization kits and standardized planning and correction modules. The module consists of wings, tail assembly, and a control unit, which are installed on a standard aerial bomb. One of the bombs equipped with these kits was the FAB-500, which turned out to have an even longer range than originally expected. However, even though the FAB-500 is mass-produced and highly accurate, it did not become that game-changer. Because the 200-kilogram TNT charge, which is quite sufficient for destroying field fortifications, turned out to be too weak to destroy permanent firing structures. Then on April 6, 1923, a decision was made to develop a similar modernization kit for a larger bomb, the 1,500-kilogram bomb. However, in the nomenclature of bombs from the 1963 model, there were no bombs of such caliber, so the developers had to use the 1953 model bomb. These bombs had intentionally worsened aerodynamics so that the plane would have time to fly away while the bomb was falling and would not be damaged by its detonation and fragments. Now when the bomb flies at a distance of 40 kilometers, such danger no longer threatens the plane. But the blunt nose and the drag ring, on the contrary, reduce the flight range. So in addition to the wings and the new tail section, on whose stabilizers control surfaces are installed, the glide bomb was also equipped with a nose cone. Getting carried away, the Russian military ordered a similar upgrade, even for the 3-ton bomb. One advantage of using larger caliber bombs is that it saves modules called cometa, protected antenna blocks of the GLONASS receiver, which are in high demand. And due to this high demand, this scarce block can simultaneously withstand 3 electronic warfare systems, such as the equipment installed on the Bukovel electronic warfare vehicle. Sets of unified planning and correction modules, which turn bombs into glide bombs, are already being installed on FAB-250, FAB-500, and FAB-1500, allowing them to be dropped from distances of up to 70 kilometers. Thus, in Russia, methods for installing such kits on large bombs have already been developed. It is possible that the Russian military-industrial complex will be able to implement their installation on the FAB-3000 as well. Most likely, it will involve scaling up the already developed design, which may allow the Russian military-industrial complex to implement their installation and launch mass production. This scaling will be applied to the FAB-3000. This will result in a significant increase in the weight and size of the bomb while using the same carrier. Therefore, most likely, the correction module will be equipped with a booster to prevent a dozen Su-34s which have carelessly approached the line of contact at a distance of 4,060 kilometers from entering.
Create the condition. Range 30 to half. Aircraft number 1. Quiet, quiet, quiet.
Aircraft number 1, pull!
It is noted that the only standard aircraft left for them in Russia is the Tu-22M3, which in theory can carry the FAB-3000, even with increased dimensions due to the Unified Glide and Correction Module kit, and there are also plans for the FAB-5000 with the Unified Glide and Correction Module. The stumbling block could be the size of the bomb bay, the mounts, and the support beam. Perhaps the only solution will be to place it on an external mount. Even then, you'd still have to risk the aircraft in a strategic mission.
Стратегической авиации.
It's important to note that in Russia, the Tu-22M3 is not being produced today. What exists is only the appearance of production at the Kazan Aviation plant, named after Gorbanov. The fact is that the plant had 4 Tu-22 fuselage assemblies in storage from the Soviet era, and now they are simply finishing them, one every 3 to 4 years, imitating some kind of production. Starting the assembly of the Tu-22 from scratch on a full-cycle basis is impossible, both technically and technologically. There is no such capability, and it is unlikely that it will appear in the future. Moreover, there are no plans to lift sanctions on Russia's aviation industry in the near future, which pushes spare parts supply into gray market channels or outright smuggling. And on top of that, Ukrainian drone strikes on Ryan's plant, which produce semiconductors, immediately cause problems with aircraft onboard equipment. There were also strikes in the Moscow region on an optics plant and on manufacturing plants. They are critically important and supply equipment for all branches of the armed forces. And that's not to mention the massive drone strikes on oil refineries and airfields. Unable to increase production, Russia decided to protect its aircraft. After the explosion at the Engels airfield in December 2022, some of the strategic aviation was relocated further away to the Far East, the polar Cis-Ural region, and the Kola Peninsula. This reduces the number of aircraft involved in attacks on Ukraine and increases the flight time to the missile launch site, but it helps protect the planes from strikes. There have also been acts of sabotage. Russian frontline aviation tries not to enter the range of Ukrainian air defense as it was before February 2022. Russian aviation bombed defenseless people in Syria and Georgia who had no way to respond. But here, as the pilots themselves admit, they suddenly ran into a country with the most powerful air defense in Europe. And precisely to avoid contact with Ukrainian air defense, Russia focused on modernizing its aircraft weaponry. In Russia, they might try to fit the FAB-3000 with a unified glide and guidance module. But the Su-34 frontline bomber, which already uses the FAB-1500 with a unified glide and guidance module, and even the fact that the Russian module is an autonomous flying device to which a bomb is attached, or which is attached to a bomb, that's not so important. The important point is that the result of simple scaling might not be worth the effort. The Su-34 is not a standard carrier for the FAB-3000, so mounting a modified bomb on it is not a trivial task. It will require solving a whole range of issues. Also, the increased weight compared to the FAB-1500 with the unified glide and guidance module. Doubling the distance means it must fly much farther to the drop point, clearly raising the risk of encountering an anti-aircraft missile. There are still the Tu-95 and the Tu-160, but they have different armaments and their own tasks. The appearance in Russia's arsenal of such strike weapons as the FAB-3000 with a unified glide and guidance module is, at least theoretically, both likely and an extremely threatening scenario for Ukraine. But at the moment, it looks more like a propaganda stunt. At the same time, The 53rd Arsenal is well within the range of Ukrainian long-range weapons, as experience has shown, 750 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. So, in the event of a successful strike, it could cause one of the biggest explosions in the Federation in recent times. Although it should be noted that, according to regulations, loaded munitions at such facilities must be stored in protected storage areas. Moreover, this facility should be well protected by air defense systems, because nearby, 3 kilometers to the east, is the territory of perhaps an even more interesting candidate for an explosion, the Sverdlov plant in Dzerzhinsk. It is the largest producer of explosives in the Federation and the only manufacturer of octogen and hexogen in the country. There's even a little river there, a canal called Hexogenka. During the Soviet era, Dzerzhinsk was a city with 50 enterprises producing, in addition to explosives, all types of chemical warfare agents and chemical protection equipment. A city with the entire periodic table in its soil and water. A city of ecological disaster even worse than Chernobyl. That's a discussion for another time.